Hey y'all, my name is Christina Barker. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor and a love and life coach. And I'm here today to talk to you about a topic I titled Mom Grit. Now, MOMM is an acronym that stands for Married Moms of Multiple Minors. And if you fit that category or description, I want you to come on over to our Facebook group because we have a weekly live session called Moms Go Live where I cover all sorts of topics that are relevant to moms like me and you. If not, you're welcome to hang out with us right here on YouTube or visit me over at my website. But in the meantime, I wanted to get into this topic of mom grit. You know, this month, the ladies and I are all talking about finding balance in our lives. And we looked at a lot of different issues that we find are the biggest concerns for us. And we were unanimous in identifying stress and strain and exhaustion and being overwhelmed as one of the number one topics that we are all sort of struggling with together, right? And so I figured it was important for us to really dive into what do we need to do. And so we've been reading this book titled Make Your Bed, and it's a motivational book written by an admiral from the U.S. Navy where he was giving a commencement address, and he was giving some tips on if you want to change the world, start by doing little things that'll make big differences and have big impact. And so one of the things that I wanted to sort of come to you today to talk about is 4 essential qualities, virtues, behaviors, characteristics of a mom who is going to face the challenges of being a married mom of multiple minors with a sense of confidence and tenacity and resolve to get the things done, just get it all done, right? And so GRIT is an acronym, just like Married Moms of Multiple Minors is the acronym MOM. GRIT is an acronym that stands for the following traits. A mom with grit has grace. A mom with grit is resilient. A mom demonstrating grit is intentional. And finally, a mom with grit is tolerant. And the tolerance stands for she's tolerant of unpleasant emotions, and she has a high tolerance for distress, feelings of discomfort and distress, specifically as it relates to her emotions. Let's dive in a little bit, okay? What does it mean to have grace as a mom? What does it mean to have grace as a person? Well, I looked it up in the dictionary, and the word grace has to do with being kind and compassionate. And you know, oftentimes we are taught just in childhood and preschool years to be kind and to share and to be generous. And if you grew up in the church and you grew up in a Christian home, you were taught that love is patient and love is kind. And so oftentimes we know that it's important to be kind to everybody. But the question is, are we kind to ourselves? Right? A lot of times moms are overwhelmed and tired and stressed out. And the reason that they are so hard on themselves is because they don't have a lot of grace for their own limitations, their own imperfections, their own shortcomings. And so we have big dreams and big goals and big plans, and we are always faced with the reality of how far we're falling short, how much we're not getting done, and how off the mark our day usually ends. And so the first thing we're going to start with out the gate, not as an afterthought, oh yeah, let's add a little grace. We're starting with grace. We're going to start this thing with grace. We're going to wake up every day extending grace to ourselves for all the things that we didn't get done yesterday that we probably could have and should have and would have if we had been a little bit more disciplined or a little bit more organized or just had a little bit more strength in our bodies. We're going to start with grace, and we're going to be kind. What does being kind look like to you? How can you be more kind to yourself? How can you be more compassionate towards yourself? Is it you need to start your day with morning meditations, affirmations? Is it that you need to be able to acknowledge your strengths and your skills and your talents and the things that make you beautiful? Is it that you need to practice thought stopping and capturing those thoughts that are sent from you know who, the enemy of your soul, trying to torment you with negativity and low self-esteem and condemnation and judgment? What does it look like to be more kind to yourself? When you fall short, which you will, because you are a human being with a capacity, right? You have a capacity to do good, but you also have limitations, and you can't go beyond that capacity. There's not enough time in the day. There's not enough strength in your body. When you meet your limit, what do? Do you beat yourself up? Do you put yourself down? Do you tell yourself how inadequate you are? Or do you focus on what you did achieve? Do you focus on what you did accomplish? If you water a seed, it will grow. If you speak praise to yourself and kindness to yourself and good things to yourself, affirming yourself, then you will improve in all the ways that matter. You will show up in ways that you haven't shown up. A good coach is not only one who's teaching you what you need to correct, but they're praising you when they see your progress and when they see your improvements, right? So you have to be your first coach. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have to be the first person you run to when you've disappointed even yourself, and get that nurturing that you so easily give to everybody else. A woman with grit has grace for herself. Number 2, a woman with grit is resilient. The word resilient just basically means that you can stick it out and you can fall down and make a mistake, but you can get right back up. You are not one who is easily overcome by challenges and difficulties and problems, and you don't give up and throw your hands up at every sight of failure or flaw or inadequacy. You say, I can do this. And I just may need to come back to the drawing board to re-strategize. I may need to take a break, get a nap, come back at it well rested. You are looking for a way to not let temporary defeat keep you down permanently, right? So I heard a saying that someone does not drown because the water overtakes them. Someone drowns because they stay under the water, right? If you are drowning, you have to figure out how to get out of that water, how to get back up. And when you give up, that's when you actually drown, right? Now, of course, I'm not trying to be insensitive to people who the water really did overwhelm, but most of us are giving up, not because the water is just too much, but because we got discouraged along the way. We got a little tired along the way. A woman with resilience says, no matter what life throws at me, I'm going to come back better and stronger and more determined to do what I need to do to get what I want, right? The determination to not quit, but to go forward and get all that it is that's out there for you to get. That's resilience. A woman with grit is resilient. Number 3, intentional. I named 2022 the year of intentionality, the year that I was going to be intentional. The word intentional means to be purposeful, to have purpose in your mind, right? To wake up with a plan and to go about executing that plan on purpose, right? Intentionality means that I don't just wish and wait for good things to happen. I think about what it is that I want, and then I come up with a strategy for how to get what it is that I want. So what is something that you really know you are supposed to be doing, having, achieving, accomplishing, completing, starting, that you haven't been intentional about, right? As it relates to your relationship with your children, maybe you realize that you need to invest more in let's say their physical fitness, right? Have you been intentional about planning physical fitness into their day? If they're sitting on the couch and using their thumbs, and their thumbs are getting worked out consistently, and you realize that they're becoming more and more sedentary and just couch potatoes, right? This is just a random example, right? To be intentional means you think of what needs to happen differently, and then you actually go about making it happen. There's a saying that a goal without a plan is just a wish. So if you're a person who believes that wishing is sufficient, then you go right ahead. You step outside your door tonight, you look up in the sky, and you wait for that shooting star. And when it goes flying across the sky, you go ahead and offer up a wish to that star. I can tell you that tomorrow's not going to be much different if that's how you're living your life. If you have things that you want to see happen, you have to make them happen, because they don't just happen on their own. There's a verse in the Bible. It says faith without works is dead. Okay? That is aligned with this idea that as a woman with grit, I have to be intentional. I can't just have the faith that things are going to be okay. Things are going to happen the way they should. I have to go and make sure that they do. Right? Now, we understand that our ability to make things happen is still limited, right? We do our best, and I like to say this, we do our natural, what we can. God adds his super, and here we are with a supernatural outcome. But we have to do our natural for him to add the super to give us the supernatural outcome. Faith without works is dead. So what do you need to make a plan to do? What do you need to change about your daily activity? What do you need to change about the way you relate to your husband? If you are like a lot of women with multiple children and multiple duties and multiple hats they're wearing and multiple roles, you probably don't necessarily make enough time for quality time with your husband. Do you need to be intentional about scheduling quality time in the bedroom to be intimate with your husband? It's not going to just happen, right? Unless you're intentional. And the list goes on. If you want your family to eat more home-cooked meals, groceries don't just show up in the refrigerator. You have to be intentional about what you buy, what you stock the fridge with, what time you start dinner. Because if you start it too late and you're already tired and you're exhausted and you didn't thaw the food and you didn't, then you know what? You're going to end up warming and serving something prepackaged. Life as a mom with grit requires intentionality. And finally, number 4, T. Now, this is one of my favorites. The T stands for tolerance. And I teach my clients that, we have to learn to manage our emotions. It's called emotional regulation. And if we don't manage our emotions well, they will end up managing us. Our emotions are never supposed to be in the driver's seat of our life. Our rational thought, our ability to think and make conscious, rational, responsible, well-grounded in what is realistic and mature decisions require that we manage our emotions. Emotions have their place. They inform the decisions that we make, but they cannot be in the driver's seat telling us what to do and when to do it, because emotions are unreliable leaders. They are always in motion. I love the fact that the word emotion has the word motion in it. They're always changing. So one minute you feel angry, and if you act on that feeling in the anger, you might regret it later when that anger changes and you really feel something else. So instead of just acting on anger, we have to manage our emotions. But in order to manage our emotions, sometimes it means that we have to be able to handle the discomfort of an unpleasant emotion. And that's what I call distress tolerance. Being able to not have a meltdown, not lose your cool, not be thrown off of your A game because something unpleasant has happened, right? For me, I remember when I first got married, I told this story to the ladies in our most recent live. When I first got married, I bought into the lie or the illusion that marriage was supposed to be the end all to the be all, and I was going to be happily ever after. A real life fairy tale. That's what I believed. And my husband, Prince Charming, the one of the main characters of this romance, of this fairy tale, was supposed to make me happy. He was supposed to be the source of my joy. And very quickly, very early in marriage, he taught me that was not going to happen, right? It would be little things. And it wasn't that he was a bad husband or unattentive or emotionally unavailable. He just had different ideas from me. And in my mind, you're supposed to think like I think and want what I want. So I'd get invited somewhere and I'd joyfully say, yes, we're coming. And then my husband would say, I don't really want to go. And I would become distraught. How dare you say you don't want to go when I want you to go and you love me and you're supposed to make me happy? And one day he asked me a really simple question. He said, were you spoiled growing up? And I was floored at the question. I was offended. How dare you call me spoiled because I want what I want. And what I want is the right thing to want. There's nothing wrong with what I want. Well, I had to learn that I was acting very spoiled. I was acting very entitled. And I felt that if I didn't get what I wanted, something was wrong in the world. Something was wrong with my marriage. And I had to grow up. I had to mature. I had to develop emotional intelligence. I had to be able to hear no from my husband and not have a meltdown and be ready for a divorce. There were moments when I literally thought, I can't do this because he's not making me happy in the ways I thought he was supposed to. And I had to realize that was an emotion. And I could sit with the emotion of being disappointed about something he didn't want to do or something he said that was different from what I wanted to hear. And the emotion would eventually pass if I allowed myself to just give it time, right? How I thought about things had to be changed. I had to challenge my cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions is just a fancy word for flawed, faulty ways of thinking. I thought my husband's job was to make me happy. And when he wasn't making me happy, I thought I was in a bad marriage. And that was a cognitive distortion, a flawed, faulty way of thinking. How about you? What is your meltdown? What causes you to lose your cool? Are you emotionally volatile? When you get bored, or when you feel like when your husband's not helping the way you want him to help around the house, or when the kids are once again arguing and driving you up a wall, are you losing it? Are you screaming? Are you out of control? Or are you able to sit with the emotion of being frustrated and it not become a catastrophe? Are you able to sit with the emotion of being disappointed and it not become a catastrophe? We can make a mountain out of a molehill if we're not careful, if we're not in checking our emotions and keeping them in check. So I'm going to give you a little bit of education real quick, because in my past life, I was a teacher and educator. And so I like to incorporate psychoeducation into my coaching and into my counseling. Okay, here it is. Your brain has 3 parts, 3 sections. At the bottom section, your brainstem, this is where your autonomic nervous system exists. In the middle section is your limbic system. And at the top is your cerebral cortex. Now, those 3 parts are important. In your autonomic nervous system, that's the part of you that keeps you alive. It's where your impulses and instincts exist, right? When you are about to fall, you throw your arms out and to catch yourself. Otherwise, you slam your face into the ground and it will be possibly catastrophic, right? So nervous system automatically responds by throwing your arms out. It's also the part of you that controls your breathing and your blinking and your swallowing and all of those autonomic things happening in you that require zero thought. A lot of times people are operating in life from an automatic reflex place. Something happens, it triggers us, and we react, right? That's not healthy, and I'm sure you can understand why. The second section is your limbic system, which is responsible for your emotions. It's the seat of where your emotions are. Happy, sad, joyful, frustrated, irritated. Once again, it's still the old brain, the lower part of the brain. It carries important information, but what we do with the information is important. Do we let the emotions we're feeling drive and dictate how we act, how we think, how we speak to each other? If that's the case, then you're going to be out of control. You're going to be an emotionally volatile person, always at the whim of whatever your emotion is. So as we can see, responding on impulse to things is immature. Responding out of emotion without thought is immature. The only way we respond, or the most responsible way to respond to anything, is by elevating ourselves to our cerebral cortex, where our ability to think consciously, rationally, logically happens. And we take into consideration the things that are true, that we are learning from our emotions, the things that we become aware of from our impulses. And we use the information, but we have to make conscious, rational decisions in how we're going to speak, how we're going to behave. Where are you? Where are you? Are you primarily in the lower part of your brain, the medial part of your brain, where everything you do is based on impulse, instinct, or emotion? Or have you elevated to the higher part of your brain? If there's hope for you. If you are tending to be emotionally volatile, here's the answer to how to stop doing that. Just pause. Sometimes that instinct and those emotions are really intense initially, but if you give it some time, those emotions and instincts can slow down, calm down, and you can actually access rational thought. To speed the process up, be intentional about your breathing. Slow inhales and slow exhales. What your breath does, intentional inhales and exhales do, is it calms you down and it allows you to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which allows you to think rationally, gives you access to those rational thoughts. Okay? One more thing, ground yourself through rational self-talk. If you are ruminating on all the reasons why you should pop off and punch somebody, then guess what you're going to do? You're going to end up popping off and punching someone. You have to be able to capture your thoughts and challenge them with rational self-talk. This is an emotion. I'm really upset. This emotion will pass, and once it does, I can think clearly about how to respond to this person who really upset me. And oftentimes, I'll say 8 times out of 10, maybe it's 9. You might even find it's 10 times out of 10. Once you've calmed down, the thing that had you so upset, you're able to realize it's not even the big deal that you thought it was. Take a nap. Take a walk. Call a friend. Journal. Pray. Cry. Do something other than just reacting, and you'll find that you have access to rational thought. So those are the 4 categories. I'm going to remind you that a woman with grit, who's able to persevere through the role strain, who's able to manage all of her roles expertly, who's keeping it all together, who's not off her rocker, controlled by her emotions, has grace for herself. She's kind and compassionate. She has resilience. She doesn't give up at the first sight of difficulty. She is intentional. She's not waiting for this life that she wants to happen to her. She's going after it intentionally. And finally, she has distress tolerance. She can handle difficult emotions because she is in control. I hope that blessed you today, and I want to hear from you in the comments. Let us know what you think. And like I said before, join us on over at Married Moms of Multiple Minors on Facebook every Monday, live at 8. See you there. God bless.